Our mission, as always, is to cut through the noise and deliver the most efficient, actionable knowledge right to you.
Without all the stress.
Exactly, without the stress or the information overload. And today, we are doing a deep dive into something pretty universal. The blueprint for really mastering English.
Yeah, and we've got a great set of sources here. They're just very clear step-by-step notes that frame language learning not as some big, scary academic thing,
Right.
but as a series of, small daily habits you can actually build.
I love that. And the tone of these notes, it's so encouraging. It's all about speaking slowly, using easy English.
That's the key takeaway right from the start. It immediately signals the philosophy we're getting into today, which is finding the path of the least resistance, the lowest possible friction to consistent learning.
It's a blueprint built on consistency, not on perfection.
Exactly.
I really appreciate that focus. We're not looking for a magic trick to memorize 1,000 words overnight. We're looking for a sustainable way to, weave English into your daily life.
Precisely. And our mission today is to unpack these 4 interconnected skills: listening, reading, speaking, and writing.
And not just the what, but the why.
The logic behind them. Yeah.
Right.
Why start with one skill over another? Why does repeating something actually work? And the foundational idea here is, well, it's non-negotiable. English takes time.
Of course.
The goal is growth, incremental improvement, not being flawless overnight. This whole deep dive is about setting up your learning environment for success.
Okay, let's unpack this journey then. And we're going to start exactly where our sources tell us to. The
Yeah.
very first skill a learner has to focus on. So the material is crystal clear on this. Listening is the starting point. It's foundational. It doesn't say to, juggle all 4 skills at once.
No, it prioritizes.
It does. And so my first question, really for you, the listener, is why? Why this approach? Why not just jump into speaking, which, let's be honest, feels like the real measure of success?
Well, that's a great question. And what's so fascinating here is the strategy, both cognitive and psychological. The whole point of starting with listening, according to these notes, is to make English feel familiar and natural.
Okay.
If you think about how our brains acquire language, auditory input, it creates the whole foundation. Before you can make the right sounds, your brain has to map out this totally new sonic landscape.
So you're training the ear before you train the mouth. You have to recognize the music of the language, the rhythm, the intonation, before you can play it yourself.
That's the perfect way to put it. When a language is unfamiliar, listening is actually really stressful. It feels like just noise that you have to decode word by word.
Oh, absolutely.
But consistent listening, that exposure, it slowly changes the language from being this academic exercise into just a natural pattern. You're building the neural pathways that recognize English as a system, not just a jumble of sounds.
And the source gives one instruction here that feels so important for managing that early stress, to prevent what I'd call learner burnout.
I know the one you mean.
It's the rule. Don't try to understand every word, just understand the main idea.
This is probably the single most important piece of advice in the whole thing, because it directly tackles cognitive overload. I mean, think about the friction, the effort of trying to translate every single word.
You stop, you get out the dictionary, you lose your place.
You lose the context, you forget the flow, and suddenly a 5-minute podcast takes 20 minutes and you're just exhausted.
Which means you're probably not going to do it again tomorrow. It becomes a chore.
Exactly. But by aiming for the main idea, just the gist, you're actually forcing your brain to use context and inference. You're doing what native speakers do all the time.
That's a great point.
You keep the flow going. And that flow helps your brain absorb the structure and the cadence of the language. And that's way more valuable early on than just, mastering one single word.
So we're prioritizing the big picture and the psychological momentum over getting every little detail right. Okay, so let's get into this specific, actionable steps the source gives us for building this listening habit.
So the main tip, it's all about low friction design. It says, listen to short English podcasts every day. The magic here is that combination of daily commitment but short content.
Right. Let's break that down. The efficiency of short content. Because if you tell yourself you have to listen for an hour, you're going to skip it when you get busy. But what does 5 or 10 minutes a day actually achieve?
It achieves what behavioral scientists call making the entry point easy. A 5-minute commitment is. It's psychologically nothing. It's so easy to stack onto a habit you already have.
Like while you're brushing your teeth or making coffee.
Exactly. And that ease guarantees you'll actually do it. And when you finish it, because it's so short, you get this little hit of accomplishment. It reinforces the habit. You're building a streak, and streaks are powerful motivators.
Much more motivating than some vague, far-off goal like fluency.
So much more.
But what if, you find a really interesting 45-minute news segment? Should you just avoid it?
Not avoid it, no, but adapt your approach. So instead of trying to listen to the whole 45 minutes once, you commit to listening to the first 7 minutes every day for a week.
I see.
We're prioritizing the habit of listening daily over just finishing one piece of content.
That's a really practical way around it. Now, the source also suggests bringing in a visual aid. Watch English videos with subtitles. How does that multisensory approach help?
Oh, it's incredibly powerful. Combining sight and sound creates these stronger, sort of redundant memory pathways in your brain.
Okay.
When you hear a word, one part of your brain lights up. When you read it, another part lights up. When they fire at the same time, the connection becomes so much stronger. And this is vital for English, where, spelling often has very little to do with pronunciation.
Right. So seeing the subtitle just clarifies everything. It connects the sound you heard to the letters on the screen all at once.
Exactly. You start to see where one word ends and the next begins, even in fast speech. It's a game changer for really solidifying vocabulary.
And this is where the efficiency part really comes in for me. The advice is, listen to the same audio 2 or 3 times. Why that specific number? What do you gain on that second or third listen?
This is such a smart strategy because it maximizes learning without, getting boring. Let's break down the 3 passes.
Okay.
The first time you listen, it's just for the gist, the main idea only. Your brain is focused on the big picture. What's the topic? What's the mood? You're just getting your bearings.
You're accepting that you won't understand everything.
You have to. Then, on the second pass, your brain doesn't have to work so hard on what's happening anymore. So that frees up mental bandwidth to focus on how the message is built.
The structure.
The structure. You start noticing grammar, verb tenses, how sentences are connected. You go from the content to the mechanism.
And the third pass.
By the third pass, you're familiar with the content and the structure, so now you can focus on the really subtle stuff. The music of the language, intonation, stress, rhythm, how sounds blend together. This is basically your rehearsal for when you start speaking.
And if you listen more than 3 times, you get diminishing returns.
Yeah, generally. You hit the law of diminishing returns, and just as important, you get bored. And boredom is the enemy of consistency. It introduces friction. 2 or 3 times is kind of the sweet spot.
So we're training the ear, we're lowering anxiety by focusing on the main idea, and we're using short, repeated content to build that natural familiarity. The source guarantees that if you do this, your understanding will get better. It's a strong foundation. All right, so we've set up that auditory foundation. Now we move to the next logical pillar of input, which is reading.
Right.
And the sources are smart here. They highlight that reading is how you learn new words, and I think this is even more important, how you internalize new sentence patterns, the kind you don't always hear in simple everyday speech.
It's the perfect next step because reading builds on that familiarity you got from listening. You're now seeing the structures and the words you've already heard, but laid out visually. If listening is hearing the rhythm.
Reading is studying the sheet music.
That's a great way to put it. It's the best way to expand your passive vocabulary and really see how complex ideas are built in writing.
And straight away, the sources tackle that psychological barrier by saying, you don't need difficult books. Start small. This is so important because a lot of learners think they need to jump straight into, I don't know, Shakespeare or something.
And that instinct is just lethal to consistency. If you have to look up 10 words in every sentence, you're not learning anymore. You're just fighting exhaustion.
Yeah.
Starting small is the main rule because learning really depends on what linguists call comprehensible input.
Okay, break that down for us. What is comprehensible input?
It's often called I+1. The I is your current level. The +1 means the material you're consuming should be just a little bit above your current level, but not so hard that it's overwhelming.
So not too easy, not too hard.
Exactly. If it's too easy, you learn nothing new. If it's too hard, you can't figure out the meaning from context and you just get frustrated. So by recommending simple books or news for learners, the sources are making sure you stay in that sweet spot, that I+1 zone.
That makes a lot of sense. So what kind of specific material should you be looking for?
The sources suggest a few things. First, read short stories or children's books. They use really common words and basic sentence structures that are easy to understand and, crucially, easy to use later in your own speaking.
So there's a direct link from input to your future output.
A direct link. Second, use English news made for learners. This is great because the vocabulary is modern, it's relevant, and it's useful. You're learning about current events, not, some archaic literary terms.
And that leads to my favorite part, this whole framework, which is tying the practice to what you actually enjoy.
Yes.
The sources say, choose topics you already love, sports, travel, cooking, whatever. It links pleasure directly to that 10-minute daily habit.
We really have to underline this point. It's a psychological anchor. When you choose something you're already interested in, it stops feeling like a chore. It becomes a reward.
A little break in your day.
Right. And the vocabulary you learn is immediately relevant to your interests, so it's more likely to stick. This is low-friction design in action.
So here's the big moment. You're reading, you're in the flow, and you hit a word you don't know. The advice the source gives is pretty counterintuitive. It says, when you read a new word, don't stop too long. Just keep reading and come back later.
This is so hard for so many learners to do, especially analytical ones. It feels wrong, like you're just skipping information.
It does.
But it's a critical skill for prioritizing flow and context. If you stop for every single word, you break the story, you lose the narrative thread, and the whole structure of the sentence just falls apart in your mind.
But isn't there a risk that you misunderstand something really important? A key word that changes the whole meaning.
It's a calculated risk, sure. And that's why the advice is, don't stop too long. If a word keeps showing up over and over, or if the sentence makes absolutely zero sense without it, then okay, maybe a quick look is necessary.
But most of the time.
But 90% of the time, that unknown word, you can probably guess its meaning from the words around it. Especially if you're in that I+1 zone we talked about, you're training your brain to deduce meaning from context, not to just rely on a dictionary.
Okay, so what's the benefit of looking up the words after you're done reading for the day instead of in the moment?
It separates two different mental tasks. Reading for pleasure is an input task. You want speed and flow. Reviewing vocabulary is an analysis task. It needs focus.
I see.
By waiting, you've already seen the word in its natural habitat, inside the story. So when you go back and look it up, you have this rich contextual anchor for it, which helps you remember it so much better than just learning a word from a list.
So you're learning how the word works in a sentence, not just what it means.
Precisely. It lets you get the benefits of reading, learning new words and structures without killing the enjoyment of it. That keep going rule is what keeps the habit sustainable.
Okay, we've talked a lot about input listening, reading, and training our brains to recognize patterns. But now we have to talk about output, and this is the big one, the major psychological hurdle, speaking.
Yeah, the fear is real.
It's intense for almost every learner. The fear of making a mistake, of being judged.
And this whole section of the source material is designed specifically to lower that anxiety. It doesn't pretend speaking is easy. Instead, it just gives you these small, manageable steps to get over that fear.
And it all starts with this one central idea, this mantra. The goal is communication, not perfection.
That reframing is everything, isn't it? It completely changes your internal measure of success. It's not, was my grammar perfect? It's, did the other person understand me?
A purely functional goal.
Absolutely. And when communication is the goal, then suddenly mistakes aren't failures anymore. They're just part of the process. The source says mistakes help you learn.
And we need to really embrace that. An error is just feedback. If you never get feedback, so you can't improve.
Exactly. Speaking improves with practice, just a little bit every day. Consistency is still the key.
But how do you start getting that feedback without, throwing yourself into a high-stakes conversation like a job interview?
The source gives a great graded approach. It starts with zero-pressure techniques. And the first one, which is so effective, is shadowing.
Let's spend a minute on what good shadowing actually is. It's a specific skill. What are you supposed to be doing, and why is it better than just listening?
Okay, so shadowing is when you actively mimic a native speaker. You listen to a bit of audio and you repeat it, almost at the same time, like an echo. You're copying their words, their rhythm, their intonation, their stress, everything.
So it's a physical act.
It's physical. That's the difference. You're training the muscles in your mouth, your tongue, your throat to make English sounds. It's building vocal muscle memory.
It sounds like a musician practicing scales or an athlete doing drills.
That's the perfect analogy. You're internalizing the music of the language. And shadowing is amazing for improving your intonation, which is often more important for being understood than having perfect grammar.
Really?
Oh, yeah. If you stress the wrong syllable or your speech is really flat, it can be very hard for a native speaker to follow you. Shadowing helps you sound more natural and therefore easier to understand. And the best part, no social anxiety, you do it alone.
Which is a perfect lead-in to the next low-pressure technique. Speak to yourself when you are alone.
This is the ultimate language sandbox. You can just play. You can form sentences without any judgment at all. You can pause, you can start over, you can struggle. You're practicing your internal monologue, but out loud in English.
Can you give us a concrete example? How would you do that effectively?
You could just narrate what you're doing as you make your breakfast. You say, okay, now I'm getting the milk from the fridge. I'm pouring it into the bowl.
Simple stuff.
Simple, mundane stuff. Or you could try to retell a story from your day, maybe using a new word you learned from your reading. The point is, you're forcing your brain to retrieve words and build sentences without the time pressure of a real conversation.
But if there's no one there to correct you, how do you know if you're making mistakes? How do you fix them?
And that is why the self-correction lip is so important. The next step is mandatory. Record your voice and listen again.
So you become your own teacher.
You do. When we speak, our voice sounds different to us. Hearing a recording is objective. It's data. You're turning your own speech into something you can analyze.
And you'd probably notice things you were totally unaware of while you were speaking.
All the time. Recurring grammar mistakes, pronunciation issues, awkward phrases. You can spot your own patterns and then work on them. You become your own first and best editor.
Okay, so once you've built up some confidence with shadowing and self-talk, then you move to the final stage.
Then you move to the social stage. Practice with a friend or language partner. This is where you test everything out in a supportive environment. It's the moment to really live that communication over perfection mantra. It's the perfect, gradual progression.
So we've covered passive input through listening and reading, and then that spontaneous verbal output of speaking. Now we hit the final pillar, structured, deliberate output, writing.
Right.
And the source defines its main job very clearly. It says writing helps you organize your thoughts in English.
And that's a really important function, and it's totally different from speaking. Speaking is fast, it's messy, you correct yourself mid-sentence. Writing forces you to slow down.
It's more deliberate.
Much more. You have to actively choose the right grammar, the right word order, the right connecting phrases. It solidifies all those sentence patterns you absorbed from your reading.
So if speaking is like improv,
writing is like composing. It's a necessary slowdown that forces you to be accurate and build a solid structure.
And the advice here is the same as for the input phase. Start simple, build the habit, start with very simple sentences.
This is key. It maximizes that organization benefit. If you try to write a super complex paragraph right away, you're just going to get lost and frustrated. Simple sentences are a manageable unit of practice. They let you focus on getting one structure right at a time.
And this leads us to the core habit the source recommends for writing.
Key habit number 1. Write a short diary every day. Again, we're making it personal.
Right.
Writing about your own life, your own day. It makes the practice immediately relevant. You're using the words that you actually need to describe your own world.
And a diary is private. There's no fear of being judged, which is what stops so many people from practicing.
None at all. And to make it even easier to start, the source even gives you a little template sentence. Today, I woke up early.
It seems so simple.
It is. But it's a perfect little unit of learning. It uses common words, simple structure, and it practices the simple past tense, which is absolutely essential for telling stories or just talking about your day.
How can a learner use that diary method to practice more than just the past tense, though?
You can intentionally structure your entry. So maybe you start with what you did today, which is past tense, I went to the store. Then you can write about how you feel right now, which is present tense, I am feeling tired. And then you finish with your plans for tomorrow, which is future tense. Tomorrow, I will call my friend.
So in just 3 sentences, you've practiced 3 fundamental tenses.
Exactly. You're scaling the value of the practice immediately.
And how do you scale up from there in terms of length and complexity?
The source suggests moving to try small paragraphs about your life or your hobbies, so you're keeping that personal, enjoyable theme. If you've been reading about cooking, try writing a short recipe or describe your favorite meal.
You're creating a feedback loop.
A powerful one. The vocabulary and patterns you picked up from reading get actively used in your writing. Input becomes output.
And then comes the review process. After you've written something, what's the next step to make sure you're actually improving?
The rule is, read your sentences again and try to fix small mistakes. And notice the wording there. Small mistakes. We're not looking for perfection. We're just looking for self-correction.
Right.
This step forces you to put on your editor hat. You're actively applying your knowledge of grammar and spelling. And that process of finding and fixing your own mistakes reinforces the correct patterns way more effectively than a teacher just marking up your paper.
It's active cognitive restructuring, not just passive correction.
That's a great way to put it, because the ultimate goal here, it's not to write a perfect essay. The source says the goal is to help you think in English.
And writing is the bridge to that.
It's the bridge. When you write regularly, you force your internal monologue, the very engine of your thoughts, to work using English structures. You stop translating in your head and you start just thinking in English.
Okay, so we've systematically walked through all 4 pillars. Listening to get the rhythm, reading to get the structure, speaking to communicate, and writing to organize your thoughts. The advice is fantastic, but the real engine behind all of it is the mindset.
The growth mindset, yeah. The idea that this all requires patience. English takes time.
And that idea is so important. It's a defense against quitting. In a world of instant gratification, people expect to be fluent in, a few months?
And when it doesn't happen, they think they've failed. But by just acknowledging that English takes time, the focus shifts. It's not about a fixed result like fluency. It's about a process, the process of growth. And slow and steady is the only way that lasts.
And the beautiful thing about this system is how it's all connected. If you get better at listening, for example, you hear the patterns better.
Which makes your shadowing better.
Which gives you more confidence to speak or write.
It's a positive feedback loop. It's what keeps you motivated. So let's just reinforce that final, simple action plan that brings it all together.
Do it.
First, listen more. Short, repeated content. Aim for the main idea. Second, read more. Stuff you enjoy that's just a little bit challenging. Keep the flow. Third, speak often. Make mistakes. Use shadowing. Record yourself. And fourth, write regularly. A simple diary is perfect for organizing your thoughts.
And the core message, really, the one that's hammered home again and again, is that daily small effort is so much better than huge weekend cramming sessions.
Those big sessions just lead to burnout and you forget everything anyway. It's the daily small effort, 10 minutes here, 5 minutes there, that builds the real lasting habit. You focus on the process and the result's just out. It takes care of itself. Your English will get stronger. It's almost automatic.
This isn't just a plan for learning a language. It's a masterclass in how to build any sustainable habit.
It's behavioral design applied to learning. And it works. Hashtag outro.
That was an incredibly thorough deep dive into what we can really call the 4 pillars of English acquisition. To just quickly recap the main strategies, always start with listening to train your ear. And don't worry about understanding every single word.
Let that go.
Just let it go. Choose reading material that's actually fun and easy enough to keep you going. When you speak, don't be afraid of mistakes. Use shadowing and record yourself to get that objective feedback. And finally, use a simple daily diary to structure your thoughts and solidify everything you've learned.
And for you, the listener who wants an efficient, structured plan, this is it. The whole philosophy is about shifting your focus away from perfection and onto consistency. Just doing the thing every day. That sustained, low-pressure approach, it's what makes all the difference.
And as we close out, let's leave you with one final thought to chew on. The advice for both listening and reading was all about focusing on the main idea and intentionally ignoring the small details you don't understand in the moment.
Right.
So here's the question. How does that act of intentionally letting go of the small, confusing details actually free up your mental energy to absorb the big foundational patterns of the language, the grammar, the flow, the syntax, faster than if you had stopped to analyze every single thing? Think about how allowing yourself to be imperfect in the moment might just be the fastest path to becoming structurally sound in the long run.
Keep learning, keep practicing, and remember the power of that small, consistent habit.
We'll see you next time for the next deep dive.